I'm seeing this over and over and over. And it's not just him. It's Patchy Mix. We talked about it earlier. Patricio Pitbull. He's now signed to the UFC. Aaron Pico wants to be signed to the UFC. And apparently Ali is his manager. And he is in talks with the UFC. There's so much going on with this fallout and post PFL merger, where PFL was not ready to take on the amount of talent, the amount of fights to put on, the amount of work to give to their actual like contracted fighters. They dropped the ball tenfold, and not just putting on fights, but promising fights and falling through. He himself had talked about them claiming and almost guaranteeing 3 different fights that he was preparing for and in camp for and getting ready to go and be on a card for Francis Ngannou or go and be on XYZ card for it to fall through. And then they say, oh, well, we got this next one match up with you. You're going to fight Pitbull for the championship. I mean, obviously we see his championship is now in the UFC. PFL, man, you also got to cut out the amount of franchises that you're trying to create. Just go and curate talent in these different areas and bring them to your main roster. Maybe make smaller local leagues, kind of how the UFC had teamed up with like LFA and like all these other smaller local leagues and such. Maybe do that to curate instead of having PFL Africa, PFL Europe, PFL this. It's a lot for the simple casual fan to want to try to keep up with. And most of the time, I think another problem is that the American fan base, myself included, we can barely tune in to anything that you put out there. I don't understand how this is so complicated. I really do not. Maybe it's because I don't know what I don't know, or maybe I'm too simple with it and I'm not thinking top tier business. But you can easily just live stream the fights to your YouTube channel. Honestly, why are you so worried about PFL Europe and Africa and all these different smaller franchises for the PFL and trying to build them up, but not have any good distribution for them? How is anyone going to be able to tune in for any of these fighters? And I know you can make an argument for having them and then them curating talent for your main roster. And I'm not completely against it. I really am not. But if you're going to have these leagues, you need to learn how to distribute and get it to the masses. How am I supposed to tune in when I have no way to watch it? It literally makes no sense to me. And then you're trying to build these stars. There is a possible road to doing that. But you continue to hold on to these Bellator fighters who, when they were done in Bellator, wanted to go to the UFC anyways instead of merging with PFL. Do you think most of them, including Patchy Mix, Johnny Eblen, Patricio Pitbull, Aaron Pico, most of these guys want out, and they really want to go to the UFC because most of them posted on Twitter. Johnny Eblen, every time I watch, I think it was just the Sean Strickland and Dricus fight, he posted this, where every time I watch a title fight, I feel like I need to compete in the UFC and I can compete with the top guys. This is how they feel. They wanted to do this before this merger ever happened. Their feelings are not going to change because they merged with the PFL. Patchy Mix, if you go back on his Twitter from like 2017, 2018, 19, he's talking about UFC, sign me, let's go, UFC. And then you could see one day it literally switches from UFC to at Bellator, at UFC, at whatever. And he's like, whatever, like, just sign my ass. Like, and then you can see, oh, when I'm done with this, I'm going to fight in the UFC. He wants to be a UFC fighter. Patricio Pitbull made it happen. He's like, what, 30 something? 36, 7? 37. I was right. Either way, this is what they want to do. They want to compete for the biggest brand in MMA. Where they are in their career, it is not about helping the PFL build up their brand unless you're going to throw buckets and buckets of fucking cash at them. Like, are you going to throw buckets of cash at them? Then I don't think that they're going to stay in the PFL, bro. I honestly don't think so. They want to go get paid. They want to go to the UFC. And the only way they get paid in the UFC is if they go and do crazy work in the UFC. But they need to get there. They need to actually get there and have the opportunity to do that. And they can't do that when they're held by this contract. And Pico is even talking about sitting out. He is very much determined to get to the UFC any way possible, it seems. These guys are not playing around. If I was the PFL and Don Davis, I would just move on. Cut ties with Bellator and all this drama and move on because it's best. Here, I wanted to pull this up here. The reason being is this is Patchy's Twitter. Pitbull tweeted, this is last month. He even reposted this. We have plans for Pitbull. Actually, let me read this one first. I signed a contract with at Bellator. The contract states that they'll give me fights. They did. PFL MMA bought Bellator. They gave me one fight in March, canceled another on week's notice mid-March or mid-camp. That's not honoring the contract. I've done my part. They didn't. Then proceeds to post. We have plans for Pitbull. We want to honor our contract and give him a fight in April. 13 months after he fought for us because we were unable to give him a fight before that. What day of April? TBD. What's the location? TBD. Who's the opponent? TBD. Real plans. That's actually pretty crazy. And then Austin McQuaid. I'm not really exactly sure who this dude is. Seems just like a sports fan. Probably somebody similar to me. What the PFL is doing to fighters like Pitbull is embarrassing. When you offer a contract and fail to honor it, don't be surprised when fighters want to leave. It makes sense. I mean, holding their career hostage is a terrible look. 1000%. It's not good. As of December 4th, he's still posting. My manager told me to hold off, but haven't heard anything from PFL and Don Davis. If you're not going to have me fight, then please release me from my contract. This is not what I want. But if I'm not important to the company being a multi-champ, then let me go respectfully. They don't even have a division for him in the tournament. Like, this is like pathetic. So in August, things seem to be cool. Is he's at least going to the fights there. Either way, found it really interesting that they're still having issues with not just one fighter who obviously is now making his debut in the UFC, but one of their biggest stars, Patchy Mix, one of their biggest stars, Johnny Eblen. Let's find that actually. Hold on. Still waiting on PFL for some fight news. Haven't heard a peep from Don or the PFL team. What's going on, guys? This is kind of rough, man. Let's see. Can we scroll and just find another one? Probably not. Oh, right there, actually. As of 12 days ago. PFL, what's going on over there? Watching something being mismanaged is probably the most frustrating feeling ever. I wonder if that has anything to do with the PFL.